All right, who's excited for successful mirroring in the MacBook Pro? All right, so Andrew here is very excited. He's actually been preparing for this presentation since October. And you wouldn't know it at all. He's very modest and very humble young man who's very serious all the time. So for the next 18 to 21 minutes, be prepared to learn about dystopia in unbuilt form, society's fears visually expressed in fiction! Fiction! Woo!
Hey, what's up, guys? How you guys doing tonight? My name is Andrew Hayner, and we're here to talk about dystopias in fiction, how their imagery instructs our understanding of the subject. The full PowerPoint is available at the website at the bottom, and don't worry, you don't have to write down, go back to it at the end. So what is a dystopia? As defined by Oxford, it's an imagined place or state in which everything is unpleasant or bad. Kind of like New Jersey. Typically, it's a totalitarian or environmentally degraded place, a opposite of the utopia. It often deals with themes of deprivation, oppression, and terror. Now, we know what dystopias are, but why do we care? Why do we give a damn? Why are they relevant to our lives today? Well, one major reason is international economic distress. With massive layoffs, destroying consumer confidence, and you have a falling tax revenue leading to lower public services, we're seeing a spike in economic populism, both for the right and concerning deficits and spending, and against corruption and corporate power on the left. Now, there's also a perception that civil liberties are somewhat under siege. Concerning legislation about the Patriot Act, SOPA, which I know was probably unpopular in this room, exactly. It's a crock of shit. Combined with increased use of surveillance technology in places you wouldn't expect it. And with increased security measures and reduced transparency and due process has raised the questions. Are we all suspects? Even if we're innocent? Now, unfortunately, we're also dealing with a deteriorating public discourse and civility in society. Our political parties rarely talk about issues, and the media often stands accused of bias both from the left and the right. And you'll see right there, obviously, illegal aliens are heartbreaking and syphilis. I mean, what kind of nonsense is that, seriously? And even if hilarious, because, you know, it can be very funny, it distorts our ability to have a rational discourse as a civil society. That's actually something I was told at Thanksgiving by my family in Tennessee. Now, this sounds like a disclaimer time real quick. I'm not an economist. I can barely read myself, so I draw pretty pictures for a living. So feel free to take my observations with a grain of salt. But we're gonna dark in a minute. While there are numerous types of dystopias in fiction, we're gonna focus on three major categories. The economic dystopia. Present financial stresses often inspire criticisms on the role of wealth in creating inequality. Gordon Gekko's a great example of someone who embodied that trend. An example, yeah, greed is definitely good. An example would be They Live, which we'll discuss. Another example would be 1984, state and societal dystopias, where basically the state decides to make all decisions for you. Some days I feel we're trending that way ourselves. And of course, my personal favorite, technophobia, where the machines take over and beat the shit out of us. I live in constant and debilitating fear of this myself. Am I the only person? Yeah, it's a really scary concept, personally. Indeed. Fuck robots. Dystopias are a powerful device to both entertain and shape public perception. Now, there's a lot of examples in classic literature. But there are others worth mentioning. Writers such as Hunter S. Thompson wrote vividly misanthropic prose, firmly casting today's society as developing it as a dystopia in real time. This drawing by Thompson collaborator Ralph Steadman exaggerates a pair of Nixon delegates in '72, stressing the potential death of American exceptionalism. A lot of big words there. Also, going a little bit differently, I want that mask so badly. I mean, if you had a face like mine, wouldn't you? The inherently dark subject matter of dystopia lends itself well to graphic novels, an effective medium that bridges the gaps between literature and cinema. Notable examples include DMZ by Brian Wood, which depicts the fallout of a politically independent Manhattan during a modern American Civil War, and of course, as pictured, The Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, illustrating the conspiracy of an intellectual elite sacrificing millions for a cynical greater good. Other examples, I mean, even musicians get into this. 9 Inch Nails released an album a few years ago called Year Zero, Someone's definitely a fan. And the album builds on themes explored in the music of government overreach, nuclear terrorism, and propaganda. And the game basically dealt with the storyline of the government lying to us and kind of taking over. You can see another version of the truth is the tagline. And this entire game deals with basically how they're lying to us, how they're kind of taking over. But we don't really care about any of that. We really care about dystopias in cinema. And we like movies, because that means we can sit on our asses. Now, perhaps the most interesting expressions are in cinema. Now, I didn't cover some of the classics. I'd like to say there's a reason, but frankly, I just ran out of time. Blade Runner, Metropolis, Brazil, they're all wonderful. They're not in this presentation. I didn't cover them, whatever. We're going to cover a few. We're going to cover the 1999 film The Matrix, as most of you are familiar with. We're going to cover the themes of that being a technophobic dystopia. Again, the robots take over. We're also going to deal with John Carpenter's 1988 film They Live. Who here has seen They Live? Wow, that's a lot more than I expected. We're also going to cover V for Vendetta, a 2005 movie case. Everybody loves it's The Mask, right? Everybody loves The Mask. And we're going to deal with my personal favorite of the presentation, Idiocracy. Mike Judge's 2006 film. The sort of mixture of all three categories. And I was scared that I had seen that one. Now, if you haven't seen one of these movies, please feel free. You'll have an introductory slide. Shut your ears, close your eyes, have someone tap you on the shoulder. I don't want to spoil any of these movies for anyone. But let's get started. Let's talk about The Matrix real quick. Now, for the three people who haven't seen it, The Matrix portrays a hacker protagonist who perceives living in present times, but the reality is he, and the rest of the human race, are controlled by a computer simulation, keeping humanity unaware of their enslavement. In this clip, Neo's mentor, played by Lawrence Fishburne, educates them on the fact that perception is false and he lives in a false past. The mentor sets up a simulation of his own to illustrate. This clip shows the fallacy of what is real and explains the limitations of his senses while showing the world as it truly is. Pay special attention to the pictorials of the city, the ruined city in the clip. And there's no sound. Or my sound? Is there sound now? There's sound. I actually missed the plug. Welcome to the desert of the real. Okay, that's my fault, guys. Not the soundboards, because I am not a very bright man, as I already covered. Okay, and we're gonna skip that now. We've already seen it. Come on. Okay. Now, one small part of the film's narrative is the relative lifelessness of the simulated city. It's quite instructive if you watch the movie how bland the city seems planned. As a designer myself, it's almost offensive. Everything's clad in very gray, very foreboding, very authoritative materials. The city seems incredibly dull, actually. After all, personal expression could be deemed beyond the creative ability of the ruling artificial intelligence, as well as against its collectivist sort of anti-individual organization as a group. So basically, the other sort of guys with Hugh Weaving here basically illustrate the centers of the program being very statist, if you will. In fact, even giving up what is the perception in exchange for the reality, one can see similarities in the structure of both. This clip shows Neo awaking and observing the reality he lives in for the first time. He lives in and the reality he actually lives in are apparent. There are some similarities. For example, in his perception, Neo is simply a nondescript employee in a cubicle working toward a collective goal. In his reality, he's still a nondescript basic employee in a cube equivalent doing a job with no individual expression towards a common goal. Very little changes. In this case, he's powering machines, but basically could be any faceless corporate drone. In his perception, again, he holds a small spot in a towering structure of power he contributes to, but does not in his end control. His reality is a little different. He deals with basically living in a cubicle in the sky, expressing power he doesn't control. So the conclusion is the Matrix deals with technology basically ruling our impulses to impair personal freedom and initiative. And it uses urban-scale imagery to emphasize the lack of personal authority we all have in this dystopian future. Now they live. Now this deals mainly with economic dystopian ideas. Now, again, who hasn't seen this movie? Cheer if you haven't. Okay. This is an odd one. What was that? Okay. Well, that's all I'm gonna say. They Live portrays the immortal Rowdy Roddy Piper of WWE fame as a blue-collar everyman struggling to make it in a time of economic turmoil. Now he looks into a pair of sunglasses that show hidden messages and alien invaders that rule his very thoughts. It's basically a critique on Reaganomics, if you will. Now this clip basically shows the protagonist seeing the wrestler, it is him. The clip shows the protagonist seeing his world with new eyes. Now, I've never understood why seeing someone in a bikini says to get married and procreate, whatever. Maybe practice procreate, but not actually procreate. Now, upon using the glasses, Rowdy Piper realizes the alien invaders have taken control of all media to force compliance. They tell you what to buy and consume. They tell you what to read and what to think and do. Do not question authority, exactly. They correctly identify what's important to all of us with painful accuracy. And this all acts to create a society where we are constantly told what to purchase, what to put in our bodies, and what priorities we have to take. We even have our leaders all but chosen for us. A cynic would say They Live actually depicts a society not that different from the one we actually live in. After a lifetime being told what to do and think, this is one man's response.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Possibly. I really don't know how this didn't win an Oscar, to be quite honest with you. So moving along, going to the state. Now, in adult economics and adult technology, this brings us to V for Vendetta, which is a state dystopia dealing primary in totalitarian themes. For those who haven't seen it, V for Vendetta is set in modern England after a national crisis to see the population make the always ill-considered trade of freedom for security. As a fascist regime takes free reign, the story shows one anarchist who seeks to reorder society. The film has a great deal of fascist imagery. The image up there of the Chancellor speaking here is one. But how does an authoritative nationalist government hold power? Basically through oppression and propaganda. And this movie clearly depicts both. Repression often can be expressed as controlling free movement, which you can see there's curfew sign basically keeps people under tabs. And bombarding citizens, bombarding citizens with propaganda, and you can see the speakers, which make a lot of appearances in the movie. Here the Chancellor makes his case to his cabinet on how to repress the citizens.
Mr. Creedy.
We're handling it as best we can, Chancellor. Arrests are as high as they've been since the Reclamation.
I want more than arrests, I want results. Mr. Creedy.
Everything's double play for some reason. After the Chancellor makes his case to the cabinet for increased police action, we observe his troops. This image shows the police stand with no text except "for your protection." The implied message of the party flag, as opposed to the national flag of England, is that these troops are there to control the state's message and not protect the rights of the people. The other method of state control is depicted in the use of propaganda. The movie has numerous images of the Chancellor, and all but one are large-scale images that strive to conspicuously depict him as omnipotent and all-powerful, dwarfing the mere mortals in his charge. Here the Chancellor outlines the message he wants his media propaganda to project in order to keep power.
I want this country to realize that we stand on the edge of oblivion. I want every man, woman, and child to understand how close we are to chaos. I want everyone to remember why they need us.
He's a very charming man. Part of propaganda's effectiveness is its market share and its reach. This picture of citizens watching a speech shows that basically the image of the Chancellor is ubiquitous. It basically underlies his power and makes it appear as if he's always watching and looking at you as you're watching television. So how can one subvert this? Well, one tactic is to actually use similar methods for yourself. Here's an image of the protagonist addressing the nation in a hacked television signal on a Times Square-esque video screen above the very party slogan he hopes to obscure. With a concerted effort, the protagonist is able to subvert public opinion and change the national discourse. In this picture, the Chancellor's speech, which is normally state-mandated viewing, is being observed by an empty room. This illustrates the level that the Chancellor has been discredited and his power reduced. This final clip is an example of the protagonist's subverted public discourse. The protagonist uses the state speakers to call attention to his acts, encourages citizens to ignore their curfew to observe, and strikes a public symbol to hint at state weakness. So anyway, there's that. And finally, I want to close with Idiocracy, a movie that deals with kind of all the themes at once. It's actually a delightful film. Applaud if you haven't seen this one. Okay, most of you have. Idiocracy shows the protagonist sent to the future as an experiment, only to find that the human race has become painfully stupid, unable to run their affairs. I'm from the South, I know what this is like. They turn over the state to technological and corporate ownership while concentrating on their own base needs. Now, how did people get so damn stupid? Well, it's pretty easy to believe, actually. The movie outlines a theory of dysgenics, or the acclimation of negative genetic traits, portrayed as a successful couple wanting to have a small family, 1 or 2 children, and it counterbalances it with less intelligent people having larger families, which seems to be happening, actually. This clip extrapolates this trend over time to define a future filled with dumber and dumber people.
Some had high hopes that genetic engineering would correct this trend in evolution. But sadly, the greatest minds and resources were focused on conquering hair loss and prolonging erections.
That's actually pretty impressive. It's to science. Now, as society worsens and people lose more and more IQ points, you end up with a society depicted in this photo. Cities in disrepair, trash everywhere, and a crumbling infrastructure. And as humans become too stupid to run their daily affairs, they simply give over all control to corporations. This image shows Costco as a shining light of future civilizations, its huge scale hinting at its immense influence in society. This increase in influence makes it easy for moneyed interests to take over the legal system. They're able to openly buy the course of the future, illustrating this still by the sponsorship decals behind the federal bench, making it look like a NASCAR quarter panel. In this future, justice goes to the highest bidder. Again, a cynic might say not that different than now. It's even decided to give citizens a barcode marking them as who they are, further destroying one's personal privacy. All of this creates a world that has slipped so far intellectually that while state governance holds complete power, its effectiveness is marred by its inability to intellectually solve issues. This clip shows a political future that seems less and less outrageous in our polarizing times.
We're running out of French fries and burrito covers.
Yeah.
But I got a solution.
That's what you said last time.
That's what I thought.
Stirring oratory if I've ever seen it. So what do we make of society where corporations have bought everything and the state has absolute power but is too dumb to actually use it, having long since given the hard work of governance to machines? I guess we end up in a world depicted in this clip where our protagonist time capsule crashes into a current day citizen, played, or maybe played as a documentary, I'm not sure, by Dax Shepard.
Next on the violence jail, in all new Albert.
I'm sorry, it's just, where am I?
Shut up! I told you already!
Yes, that was actually a toilet. So, in conclusion, what have we learned, really? I mean, honestly. Well, I guess dystopias can tell us a lot about dangers that are perceived in our current society and how current trends can develop into troubling trends later. I guess we need to watch out for demagogues who try to seek too much power. I guess we should take a critical eye to what we're told and what we should believe. We should strive to balance individual needs with collective goals. And lastly, we shouldn't wear large medallions if we become president. And with that, I'd like to welcome Matt back up here and take a few questions. Thank you.
Alright, so the first question I have, so why in cinematic dystopias, why are there no windmills?
Because windmills depict green power. I mean, as an architect, I actually have some interest in that subject, and green power is incredible, so a dystopia wouldn't have something that insightful or good, so yeah, that's why.
Alright, stupid future. Sucks. Alright, questions! Real questions that don't have to do with windmills.
How do you stop dystopia?
How do you stop dystopia? So, besides stop reading fiction, how do you stop the dystopia? Is that possible?
Well, I guess a dystopia is generally our worst nightmares about the direction we're currently going. So, to stop a dystopia is generally just, well, depends on who you vote for, yes, but I mean, also, you need to basically just be aware of what issues you face and try to take a critical eye. Don't believe anything about thinking for yourself, and don't listen to what people are trying to sell you, basically, I suppose. Keep an open mind.
If Newt Gingrich built a colony on the moon, would that be considered a dystopia?
I'm not a huge Newt fan, that'd actually be pretty fucking awesome, I think.
I think the same thing! You can live on the moon!
If it was sized to fit Newt, that'd be even more awesome.
That's right, fair enough. What's you? Alright, so I'll add it first. So the question was, should we be worried that major film studios are making all these movies about dystopias to frighten us? And I'll add to that, or is that sort of becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy?
It's funny you mentioned the self-fulfilling prophecy. I actually was with you. I actually did one last little bit of research because I basically am ill-prepared, did a couple of things today with it. And I was actually thinking that in times of despair you would see more dystopias. But actually, it seems to go the other direction. And generally, when times are tough, no one wants to listen to this garbage. When we're all kind of struggling economically, nobody wants to hear about death, destruction, and mayhem. They want happy things, they want dates, they want flowers and bees and bullshit like that. So really, no one's trying to commission movies like this right now. So, except for, yeah, well, they're commissioning at a smaller rate, I'm sorry. But I mean, yes, should we be scared they're trying to scare us? It depends on what the message in the movie is. Most of these kind of are, we should be scared of ourselves. I don't think they're really telling us to be scared of the movie theaters or even society. They're sort of picking, all these movies are picking us as our own worst enemies, I guess. So, and yes, it is somewhat right now. Some of them, they live especially, are self-fulfilling prophecies.
And I'm scared of myself every day, so it makes sense.